look at this first quiz for U.S. history, 5th grade social studies. So let's just dive into this thing. Let's start with this old guy, Columbus. Columbus sailed the ocean blue in the year 1492. Contrary to what you might have heard, most of the people in Europe did not think the world was flat, but they did think that maybe the earth was much smaller and that Columbus could sail west from Europe, or on your map right here to the left, and reach Asia and in just a short order, instead of having to go around the southern tip of Africa and then back around to reach Asia, which they really wanted to do in order to trade, to make money, those sorts of things, to get goods, make money. They thought maybe they could sail west, which once again on your map in front of you would be starting from Europe and going to the left, and then making it all the way around the globe back to Asia. And in the process, old Columbus found the Americas. And, you can debate, did he find the Americas? Was it already found? Of course, it was already found. The Native Americans already lived there. But, most would say that there had been previous European explorers who had been to the Americas, but Columbus really is the one who started colonization of the Americas by Europeans. So Columbus is incredibly important. But anyway, when you start to think about what was Columbus trying to originally do, well, he was trying to sail west from Europe to get to Asia, specifically to India or the Indies. He was trying to sail west in order to get to the east, which would be Asia. So he thought maybe the world would be small and that he could get to the Indies just by sailing west. Now, once again, Columbus. He wasn't trying to get to the Indies. He wasn't trying to get there to do something, glorious, other than he was trying to start a trade route so that obviously the people of Spain could make, specifically the king and queen, could make money. All right. So eventually he found the Americas, and doing so, he made more voyages to what would become known as the West Indies, because he wanted to start a colony in the West Indies that would once again make money, because really it was about money. And so he brought people, animals to the new land, and eventually others started coming in this big thing that became known as the Columbian Exchange. But the Spanish wanted to get rich off of this land. They weren't trying to learn from the Native Americans, except in trying to make money. They weren't trying to become a part of the culture of Native Americans. Not at all. They just wanted to make money, because that's kind of what Europeans do, sort of thing. So anyway, so that set up this thing called the Columbian Exchange, which basically looks like this. If you start up here where the skull and crossbones are, and you think, all right, what's leaving Europe, Africa, and Asia and coming to the Americas? Well, obviously slaves are, livestock are, all these things that are listed on the screen are leaving Europe, Africa, and Asia and heading to the Americas, while other things are heading from the Americas back to Europe, Africa, and Asia, such as corn and the other things that you see on the screen. This is called in history the Columbian Exchange. And so here's the thing to keep in mind once again. In the Columbian Exchange, generally speaking, things were bad for Africans, things were bad for Native Americans, and generally speaking, things were good for Europeans. So in other words, the Europeans weren't coming over to the Americas thinking, oh, we'll become a part of the Native American culture. Not at all. That wasn't the goal of the Europeans at all. The Europeans, many of them did want to convert the Native Americans to Christianity, but the real goal was to make money. So Europeans brought horses, cattle, sheep, pigs to the Western Hemisphere. Europeans enjoyed new food from the Americas, such as corn, potatoes, tomatoes, cocoa, beans, those sorts of things. Many Native Americans, many Indians, as you might call them, died from diseases that were brought over by the Europeans. So, generally speaking, the Columbian Exchange was good for Europe and bad for Native Americans and Africans. So, when you start thinking about, well, what impact did all these voyages that Columbus, when he was coming from Europe and Africa, coming to the Americas, how did this impact the Americas? It really opened colonization of the Americas by Europeans. It really brought the Europeans, Columbus kind of started it, and then the next thing you know, Europeans were coming to conquest the Americas, to colonize the Americas. And the rest is history. So what about this guy named Cortez? Cortez landed in what is modern-day Mexico, eventually made it to the capital of the Aztecs, capital city of Tenochtitlan, which is the modern-day city of Mexico City, or it's the site where the modern-day city of Mexico City is. And Cortez was able to defeat the Aztecs despite the fact that Cortez did not have as large of an army as the Aztecs did. But here's the thing, the Aztecs, they weren't necessarily good people, and so the surrounding Native American tribes were quick to join up with the Spanish because they were going against the Aztecs. The Aztecs had been mean to them, so the Spanish were able to gain allies from Native American groups in the area because the Aztecs had not treated them well. Obviously, the Europeans, the Spanish, had better armor, better weaponry, such as muskets. They had horses that they were able to use in battle, whereas the Native Americans did not have those yet. And so the Aztecs were defeated by Cortez, and many would say also that diseases played a part in that too. But the thing to remember is that the Spanish had smaller forces, but were able to defeat the Aztecs because they had better weapons, better armor, horses, and they really formed alliances with these other Native American tribes in the area. So, after the Spanish had defeated the Aztecs and had begun the process of colonizing the Americas, they also defeated the Incas and were colonizing in South America as well. The Spanish set up these things called encomiendas. And here's the deal, like anytime the Europeans, like when you hear a question about the Europeans coming to the Americas, things always went poorly, went really badly for the Native Americans. So if you look at this chart that's on your screen, this is kind of a hierarchy or how things worked in one of these encomiendas. Basically what this means is the peninsulares, or the people who were born in Spain, they were at the top of the food chain. Life was best for people at the top. So life was good for the peninsulares. Kind of second on the how life was good for people were the Creoles. They were born in New Spain, but they had Spanish parents. So in other words, their parents were from Spain, but they had been born in the colonies. In New Spain, or was in the Americas. Next came the Mestizos. Mestizos may have had one parent who was from Spain, another parent who was a Native American, and so they were just under the Creoles. And at the bottom of the pyramid, the people whose lives were most miserable in the encomiendas were the Native Americans and the slaves. So life was horrible for Native Americans and slaves. Absolutely terrible. So basically, Native Americans on an encomienda, they worked most of the time for no pay, and they were expected to leave behind their Native American traditions and religion and become a Catholic, become a Christian. So, if you were a Native American and you lived on an encomienda, your life was going to be not so good. You were going to have to give up your traditions, become a Christian, and you were going to have to work for very little to no pay. And here's the thing. Spanish landowners, the Peninsulares, they had slaves. Well, why did they have slaves? Because the slaves helped them make money. It made the Peninsulares rich. The slaves made these Spanish people rich. So that's why they had the slaves, because they wanted to make money. So there's a little bit about life in New Spain. Now, the next picture here is of a guy named Las Casas. Las Casas. Now, he wanted to put an end to slavery. Las Casas fought for the rights of the Native Americans, the Indians. He wanted slavery to end. He was trying to do good things by those Native Americans. And once again, his name is Las Casas. And he was trying to do the right thing. And the last part about this quiz, I want you to see what you can see here. Now, this is a map of South America, and on the left side of this screen, you see the Incan Empire from 1463 to 1532, and it might have stretched beyond what you see in the dark yellow in kind of pieces, but this was the main part of the Incan Empire. Lima here is in the center. Lima today is in a country called Peru, is the capital of Peru, Lima, Peru. And so where the Incas used to live, once lived, the modern day country of Peru is. So when you think about the Incas, Peru is a major country today that used to be a part of Incan lands back during the Incan Empire. And that is pretty much it. You guys, good luck on your quiz. You're going to do great. You can watch this through a few times if you need to. If you're feeling pretty good after once, just take that quiz and see if you can make a 100. So that is all for quiz number 1. Thank you.